Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to take that really high stakes knowledge, the kind that, makes or breaks big enterprise projects, and just make it clear, make it actionable. Today, our mission is to really cut through the complexities surrounding SAP S4HANA Cloud Public Edition. We're going to unpack the core architecture, the implementation methods, and those key tools you absolutely need to understand. And our source material for this, well, it's not just theoretical stuff, it's knowledge distilled from the real pressure points of implementation. Think of it like insights drawn from, say, preparing for a tough certification, maybe like the CS4 CPB 2508 exam. The kind with a high cut score, maybe 67%, lots of questions in a short time. Those questions often reveal the absolute must-know constraints and concepts. We're bypassing the textbook to get straight to what you need to know to succeed.
Exactly. And when you're talking public edition, the very first thing, the absolute ground zero, is resetting your mindset about what kind of system this is. It's not the SAP you might be used to managing yourself.
Right. It's fundamentally different.
It is. This is pure software as a service. SaaS. And that simple term, SaaS, it dictates everything else. It's the bedrock.
Okay, so SaaS, what does that actually mean in practice? What are those core characteristics we need to grasp right away?
Well, first, it's subscription-based. You pay as you go. Second, it runs on shared multi-tenant infrastructure. That infrastructure, it's completely managed by SAP.
Managed by SAP, meaning hands-off for the customer.
Completely hands-off at the infrastructure level. And this is the part that often catches people out, especially veterans, the upgrades. They are mandatory, they're scheduled, and they are managed entirely by SAP.
Mandatory upgrades, wow.
Yep. And critically, this means you cannot get access to the underlying database. No OS access either. You are subscribing to a standardized service. You don't manage the nuts and bolts.
Okay, that lack of control over the underlying layers, that fundamentally changes how you'd approach things like solution design, right? You're architecting within SAP's defined boundaries.
Precisely. Standardization is key.
So let's dive into that implementation journey then, starting right at the beginning. How do you define what the standardized system will actually do for a specific business? Where does that happen?
That initial definition, that scoping, happens straight away inside a tool called SAP Central Business Configuration. We usually just call it CBC.
CBC. Okay.
And the very first critical step in CBC isn't technical configuration. It's defining the project scope.
Defining scope sounds straightforward, but I guess in public cloud, it's less about what do you want to build and more about what fits from the menu.
That's a great way to put it. It's like selecting from a menu, SAP's best practices menu. In CBC, you're selecting the business scenarios, basically, the predefined process flows you need.
Okay.
You're also selecting the countries you'll operate in and the languages required. This isn't a minor choice. These selections dictate all the subsequent configuration content, all the functions available.
So getting this wrong up front.
Oh, it creates massive headaches downstream. If you miss a key country or a critical process flow here, fixing it later involves a lot more work around configuration, data migration. It's complex. CBC basically sets the guardrails for your entire project.
Right, laying down the tracks. Okay, so that initial blueprint is set in CBC. Logically, the next step is verifying that blueprint against the actual business needs. That brings us to the SAP Activate methodology, specifically the Explore phase. If we're focusing on those critical knowledge points again, what are the absolute core activities during Explore that confirm the scope? There are two key ones, right?
Yes, exactly. Two main ones for confirming that fit. The Explore phase is all about rapid validation, confirming that the standard solution works for the business. It's not about deep customization yet. So the first activity, conducting fit-to-standard workshops. This is where the project team sits down with the business users, walks through the SAP best practices, and validates if they meet the requirements.
And this is where you'd identify configuration needs, like company codes or something.
Exactly. You identify those necessary configuration values, and importantly, you also identify potential gaps areas where the standard process might not fully meet a critical need.
Okay, fit-to-standard workshops. What's the second core activity?
The second one is executing solution walkthroughs. This is absolutely vital. You use the provided starter system to actually demonstrate how the standard processes work.
So showing, not just telling.
Precisely. You're proving to the users, look, this is how the standard process runs out the box. You get their buy-in before moving into detailed setup. Skipping this, that often leads to scope creep later because expectations weren't managed.
I see. Yeah, it flips the traditional approach. It's accept the standard first, confirm it fits, rather than design from scratch. Makes sense in a SaaS context. All right, let's shift gears a bit. From methodology to structure. specifically the security model. Can you break down the fundamental relationship in S/4HANA Cloud Security, that hierarchy between business roles and business catalogs?
Sure, it's a clear hierarchy, designed for pretty granular control but also standardization. It starts with the business role. That's what you assign to an actual user. Think of it as the permission slip.
Okay, the role goes to the user.
Right. And that role then grants the user access to a collection of one or more business catalogs.
So the role bundles the catalog.
Exactly. The catalog is the container. It holds the actual Fiori apps, the technical authorizations needed to run them, and sometimes specific actions, like create versus display.
Okay, so role is who gets access, catalog is what technically is accessible. Clear. But this leads us to a classic problem, right? A real headache I hear about the app visibility paradox. The scenario is a user has the right role. That role is correctly linked to the catalog containing the app they need. But the app just doesn't show up on their Fiori launchpad. It's invisible. If the role and catalog are right, what's usually missing?
Ah, yes, the invisible app problem. It trips up a lot of people initially because authorization is only part of the story in the Fiori Launchpad world. Having the role and catalog gives you the technical right to use the app, but it doesn't automatically make it visible. The most common culprit here is the configuration related to pages and spaces.
Pages and spaces. Okay, explain that link.
Think of the Fiori Launchpad as like the main lobby of your application building. The business role gives you the master key to the building. The business catalog tells you which specific rooms, which apps that key unlocks.
Okay, got the key, know the rooms.
Right, but the page and space acts like the building's directory or the wayfinding system in that lobby. The app needs to be explicitly assigned to a page, which is then grouped into a space. And that space must be linked to your business role.
Ah, so if the app isn't listed on the directory floor plan, the page space that my role gives me access to.
Exactly. Even though your key works for the room, the app, you can't see the door handle on your personalized lobby layout. The app is authorized, functional, but invisible to that specific user because it hasn't been placed correctly within their UI structure via pages and spaces. It ensures the Launchpad is role-based and not cluttered.
That's a fantastic analogy. Key, room, but need the directory listing too. Okay, that clicks. Now, sticking with adapting the system, customization, obviously heavy customization is discouraged, but key users still need some flexibility. Let's say a key user needs to add a simple custom field to an existing Fiori app. And importantly, they need that field to be usable not just on the screen, but maybe in related reports or APIs. What's the go-to tool for that kind of in-app extensibility in public cloud?
For that kind of requirement, adding fields, maybe some simple logic, directly within the standard apps that use a specific Fiori app designed for this. It's called the Custom Fields and Logic app.
Custom fields and logic, okay.
Yep. Key users, or maybe functional consultants, use this tool. They can define the new field, set its properties, and then this is the key part, extend its usage. They can add it to the relevant UIs, enable it for analytical reports, maybe include it in standard forms, and even extend it to the underlying OData APIs.
And this is done without traditional coding or needing a separate development system.
Exactly. It's designed as a self-service in-app capability that respects the cloud architecture. No deep technical changes, which helps keep the core clean for those mandatory upgrades we talked about.
Perfect. Okay, let's move on to managing changes across the landscape. Public cloud enforces a strict three-system landscape, right? Development, DEV, test, and production, PROD. Since we can't just, copy transport requests like the old days, how do changes actually move from DEV to test in this managed environment?
There are two distinct ways, correct, depending on the type of change. That's right. The movement is very controlled, very systematic to protect that multi-tenant environment. First, let's talk about those in-app extensions we just discussed, the custom fields, the custom logic. Those kinds of changes are bundled together into something called a software collection. Think of it as a package or a container for your custom enhancements.
A collection for custom stuff.
Okay. You then explicitly export this software collection from the DEV system and import it into the test system. SAP requires this bundling to make sure all the related pieces move together, keeping things consistent.
Okay, so software collections handle the custom bits. What about the configuration changes we made way back in CBC? Selecting countries, activating business processes. How did those settings travel from DEV to test?
That's handled differently. Configuration done in CBC is managed through the project lifecycle itself within CBC. When you're ready to move the configuration, you perform a release of the configuration project linked to your DEV system.
Or release in CBC.
Yes. Releasing it essentially packages up those settings, and then a deployment service automatically pushes that configuration payload to the target test system. So it's a formal release and deploy mechanism separate from the software collections used for extensions.
Got it. Two distinct paths. Software collections for extensions, CBC release for configuration. Very clear.
All right, let's pivot completely now. Data, specifically legacy data migration. A common tool is the Migrate Your Data Migration Cockpit app. Now, if you're using the approach called migrate data, using staging tables, which is often recommended for performance, where is that legacy data actually sitting before it gets loaded into the final S/4HANA cloud tables? Is it in local files? Somewhere else?
That's a really important technical point, and it highlights the controlled nature of the environment again. When you use the staging tables approach, the data is not sitting on some consultant's laptop in Excel files or out on some external server, or even necessarily in BTP initially. Instead, the data is loaded into underlying SAP HANA database tables within the SAP Cloud Sister itself. These are dedicated staging tables inside your tenant. Ah, so it's brought inside the S4 and Cloud environment first into temporary tables.
Exactly. This allows the migration cockpit's own processes, validation rules, simulation runs, performance optimizations to operate directly on data already within the HANA database right before the final posting to the actual application tables. It keeps the whole process governed and contained within the target system.
Which again ties back to that central theme. SAP manages the environment, including how data enters it. Okay, let's tackle the tooling landscape now. We've mentioned SAP Central Business Configuration, CBC for setup, and then there's SAP Cloud ALM. They both sound like they manage aspects of the project. What's the fundamental difference? How do you draw the line between CBC and Cloud ALM?
Yeah, it's crucial to understand they have very distinct, non-overlapping core functions. Think about building a house again. CBC is like the architect and the interior designer combined. Its job is to define and configure the system settings, what business processes are active, what organizational structure. It deploys that business content. CBC is the doer of the initial configuration and scoping.
Okay, CBC configures the what?
Precisely. Now, SAP Cloud ALM, Application Lifecycle Management, that's your project manager and site supervisor. Its purpose is project execution and ongoing operations. Cloud ALM is where you manage tasks, track project progress, run testing cycles, both automated and manual, monitor business processes post-go live, handle incident management. It's the manager of the project lifecycle and operations.
So CBC sets it up, Cloud ALM runs the project and keeps it running. A clear division. You need both.
Absolutely. You need both working together.
Okay, one last area, strategy, especially around integration. Modern systems are rarely islands. What's the primary role of the Integration Solution Advisory Methodology, or ISAM? What is it trying to achieve?
ISAM is less of a tool and more of a strategic compass. It's incredibly important, especially in complex cloud landscapes. It's not software, it's a structured framework.
A framework for
defining an organization's overall integration strategy. Its main purpose is to bring order and consistency to how different systems connect. ISAM guides architects and decision makers in choosing the right integration patterns should this connection be real-time, batch, event-based. It helps select the appropriate tools and technologies from SAP's portfolio, like BTP Integration Suite, perhaps, for various scenarios.
So it stops people just building random point-to-point connections everywhere?
Exactly. In a world of distributed cloud apps, you could easily end up with a tangled mess, a spaghetti architecture of fragile custom integrations. ISAM provides the guardrails, the principles, and the decision trees to ensure integration is strategic, scalable, and follows best practices across the enterprise. It's about strategy governing technology choices.
Makes sense. It's the rulebook for connectivity before you start plugging things together.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. If a standardized cloud environment like this still requires rigid governance frameworks like ISAM to ensure strategic coherence, what foundational, maybe non-technical frameworks are truly governing your most complex distributed projects? And perhaps more importantly, are you treating those frameworks as the essential strategic mandates they need to be, or just as optional guidelines?
Something to definitely mull over as you navigate your own enterprise challenges. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next one.